The film begins by introducing Jake Hoyt, a man prepared to start his day as a new police officer. He warmly greets his wife, Lisa, and their infant daughter. It's Jake's inaugural day at the Los Angeles Police Department, and he's thrilled about his recent promotion. He's scheduled to go on patrol with a veteran officer from the department. While Jake is getting his patrol equipment ready, their home phone rings, and Lisa answers. Surprisingly, the caller is the senior officer who will be partnering with Jake, asking him to meet at a cafe before their patrol shift. After bidding farewell to Lisa, Jake wastes no time heading to the cafe, following the directions provided by his senior colleague. Upon arrival, he spots Detective Senior Alonzo Harris waiting for him. As a new recruit in Alonzo's division, they engage in a brief conversation. Soon after, they both hop into Alonzo's car to begin patrolling the city. Alonzo has several tasks lined up for the day, including surveillance of a group of teenagers involved in illegal drug dealings. When Jake notices the teenagers completing their transaction and preparing to drive away, he considers reporting it to the police station for assistance. However, Alonzo intervened, opting to pursue the suspects alone. He effortlessly caught up with and stopped the teenagers' car. Both Jake and Alonzo exited their vehicle, aiming their weapons at the teenagers to prevent any potential resistance. Alonzo instructed the young individuals to hand over the illegal drugs they had just bought and warned them against repeating such activities before allowing them to leave. Jake couldn't help but wonder why Alonzo chose to let the teenagers go without taking further action. As they continued on their journey to their next task, Alonzo suggested to Jake that they try some of the illegal drugs they had confiscated earlier. Jake promptly refused, highlighting that it violated police regulations. Despite Jake's objections, Alonzo persisted, leading to a heated argument. Frustrated, Alonzo eventually pointed his gun at Jake, compelling him to comply with the senior detective's demand and take the drugs. Surprisingly, the drugs had an unexpected effect on Jake, leaving him feeling intoxicated. Later, Alonzo brought Jake to the home of a retired police officer who had become a drug dealer. Upon entering, they were greeted by Roger, a middle-aged man and a longtime friend of Alonzo. They had a long chat while enjoying some drinks provided by Roger. After their visit, Alonzo drove Jake back onto the road. While driving, Jake spotted two menacing individuals harassing a girl in an alley. He immediately asked Alonzo to stop the car and got out to confront the troublemakers and protect the girl. After dealing with the thugs successfully, Alonzo arrived and began questioning the girl, who introduced herself as Eva, a student. Eva explained that she was the cousin of a notorious gang leader in Los Angeles and warned the thugs about potential repercussions from her cousin. After hearing Eva's story, Alonzo advised her to go home, instructing Jake to leave the scene since they had already dealt with the thugs. As Jake was leaving the alley, he noticed that Eva had dropped her wallet, so he picked it up. In their next assignment, Alonzo deliberately stopped on a street known for illegal drug transactions. He intended to buy cocaine from a man in a wheelchair named Blue. However, Blue quickly realized that Alonzo was an undercover police officer and hastily swallowed the evidence before attempting to escape. Jake pursued him and eventually apprehended Blue. Following that, Alonzo questioned Blue, who initially denied being involved in drug dealing. Alonzo made significant efforts to make Blue regurgitate the swallowed cocaine and grilled him about the drug supplier. Eventually, Blue admitted to obtaining the drugs from a man named Sandman. Upon hearing this, Alonzo and Jake quickly set out to find this individual known as Sandman. While they were on their way, Alonzo appeared to make some calls to his contacts to determine Sandman's whereabouts. Once they received the information, they headed to a residential area. Upon arrival at a house, Alonzo and Jake put on police jackets and conducted a raid on Sandman's residence. Unfortunately, they didn't find the person they were looking for, only Sandman's wife and son. After Alonzo asked them not to resist, he searched Sandman's room for evidence. Sadly, Alonzo didn't find anything, so he apologized to Sandman's wife and left the house with Jake. As they were about to get into their car, suddenly Sandman's wife rushed out of the house and called for some young men nearby to attack Alonzo and Jake. In that moment, Jake was confused by the situation, not realizing that Alonzo had actually stolen money from Sandman's wife. The young men launched an attack on both Alonzo and Jake, prompting them to swiftly jump into their car and flee the area to avoid being shot at. After escaping the assault, Alonzo drove his car to another neighborhood, which surprisingly turned out to be his own. Upon arriving at Alonzo's home, his wife Sarah warmly welcomed her husband and Jake inside. Jake also met Alonzo's young son, Ethan, with whom he quickly formed a bond, even dozing off on the couch with the boy for a while. Eventually, Alonzo woke Jake up and informed him that they needed to leave immediately for an important meeting with several government officials. Jake promptly got ready to accompany Alonzo to the meeting. Upon reaching a fancy restaurant, Alonzo introduced Jake to several officials and then asked him to sit at a different table while he conversed with the officials about something. During the meeting, the officials requested Alonzo to assemble a team and carry out a classified mission. After the meeting ended, Jake, who was part of Alonzo's mission, followed the senior detective to the rooftop of the building to wait for the other team members to arrive. After a short wait, four men joined Alonzo, and he briefed them on the mission they were about to undertake. Without much delay, they all departed, and upon reaching the target's house, they immediately conducted a raid. To their surprise, the target turned out to be Roger, who was known to have a significant retirement fund. The officials who had conspired with Alonzo had previously instructed him to take Roger's retirement funds. Despite being surrounded by armed men, Roger appeared calm when Alonzo asked him about the location of his pension money, and Roger complied without resistance. Shortly after, Alonzo and his team accessed the kitchen floor where Roger had kept his money. After obtaining the money they were after, Alonzo divided it among his team, reserving the rest for the officials who had given him the order. Jake, who also received a share, refused the corrupt money, stating that he would not accept it. Alonzo then asked Jake to sit beside him and pressured the police officer to shoot Roger. Once again, Jake refused, and Alonzo shot his friend, making it look like Roger had resisted, ultimately pressuring Jake to shoot the retired police officer. Jake was deeply upset about this, as he believed Alonzo should take responsibility for the shooting. Feeling frustrated, Alonzo aimed his weapon at Jake, but Jake managed to disarm him and threatened to shoot Alonzo. Despite his panic, Alonzo tried to remain composed and urged Jake to follow his plan, intending to secure a successful career for him. Hearing this, Jake eventually lowered the firearm and left the house after punching one of Alonzo's team members. Shortly after, an evacuation team arrived at the raid location, and Jake began to suspect that Alonzo was a corrupt police officer involved in criminal activities. Alonzo attempted to convince Jake that unethical practices among police officers for promotions were common, but Jake couldn't believe that Alonzo had shot his friend just to gain favor with police superiors, even though Roger was indeed involved in illegal drug dealing. Later that evening, Alonzo took Jake to a location, and upon arriving at a house, they both carried a box of money to meet with Smiley, the local gangster boss. After being allowed inside and handing the box to Smiley, Alonzo excused himself to use the restroom, leaving Jake to join Smiley and some men in a card game. After they finished playing, one of Smiley's henchmen arrived. A bald man approached Jake and asked to see the gun he was carrying without any suspicion. Jake promptly removed the bullets from his pistol and showed it to the man. At the same time, Smiley noticed that Alonzo had left in his car and informed Jake that the senior detective had intentionally abandoned him there. Realizing the situation, Jake wanted to leave, but Smiley stopped him and revealed that Alonzo was a corrupt cop who had killed a member of the Russian mafia a few months earlier. Since then, Alonzo had become a target of the Russian mafia, who had even placed a bounty on anyone who could eliminate him. That's why Alonzo was involved in illegal activities to gather money and paid various factions of the Russian mafia to avoid being hunted down. On that night, Alonzo had to pay $1 million to one of the Russian mafia members to ensure his safety. Jake soon understood that he had been deliberately left behind by Alonzo because the senior detective wanted to get rid of him after discovering Alonzo's unethical actions. So, Jake tried to escape by confronting Smiley and his henchmen, but unfortunately, he was beaten in return. Just as Smiley was about to harm Jake in the bathroom, one of Smiley's henchmen found Eva's wallet, which belonged to Smiley's cousin. When Smiley inquired about the wallet, Jake admitted that he had rescued Eva from thugs with ill intentions. To confirm this, Smiley contacted Eva, who verified Jake's statement. Grateful that Jake had saved his cousin, Smiley decided to release him. Jake returned his weapon and made his way to Alonzo's house, determined to confront the senior detective. Upon arrival and seeing Alonzo's son, Jake asked the boy to quietly open the door. He entered the detective's house and eventually found Alonzo and Sarah counting money in a room. Alonzo was surprised by Jake's unexpected visit and claimed that Jake had passed his training test. However, Jake remained focused on his mission to apprehend the senior detective who had set him up. Alonzo resisted, leading to a firefight between them. As Jake found himself cornered by Alonzo's attack, the detective took the opportunity to escape through a window to the rooftop of the building. Jake immediately chased after him, resulting in a showdown between the two. Unfortunately, Jake was overpowered, and Alonzo planned to escape in his car. Unexpectedly, Jake threw himself onto Alonzo's car, causing Alonzo to drive recklessly in an attempt to shake him off. Jake broke the car's windshield and kicked Alonzo, forcing him to halt the car. Jake continued to assault Alonzo until a group of men from the neighborhood arrived and witnessed the fight. Severely beaten, Alonzo pleaded with the gang members to shoot Jake. Consequently, one of the men placed a gun next to Alonzo. As Alonzo reached for the gun, Jake shot the detective in the leg. Shortly after, another man seized the gun and aimed it at Alonzo, instructing Jake to leave the scene. In the final scene of the movie, Alonzo, who had managed to escape from the gangsters, was driving his car on the city streets. When he stopped at a red light, he noticed a woman in another car stopping right next to him, which made him uneasy. Soon after, Alonzo's car was surrounded by members of the Russian mafia, who began shooting at him relentlessly. Unfortunately, Alonzo lost his life in the attack, and the mafia members left his body behind as they drove away. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.